inflation, home prices, and the like. Yuck. Today, I'm going to be talking about the cost of living here in Louisville, Kentucky. This video is a complement and an update to this video that I did, but with updates for the current state of things. We'll dive in right after this. Hello, folks. I'm Neal Cox with Judah Real Estate Group right here in Louisville, Kentucky. As you may know, today's dollars do not go as far as they did even a year or two ago. Go to the grocery store, you'll feel it. And of course, there are inflation conditions specific to real estate that we are going to get into. But let's talk about the cost of living in Louisville, Kentucky. So the cost of living here has been pretty stable in recent years. It's actually slightly lower than the national average. That's still true today. Inflation hits differently in Louisville, Kentucky than it does on the coasts. Look at this chart here. Most sectors are below the national average in cost, and the ones that are above are not above by very much. But of course, housing is what we want to focus on in this video. So in the past few years, the average rent in Louisville has increased by about 10%. It's due to a number of factors, including an influx of new residents. We are growing. Louisville is growing, not Austin, Texas, or Nashville, Tennessee rates, but we are growing. And the availability of housing, and we'll get into a little bit about that, has caused rents to rise. And as far as purchase prices, the price of homes in Louisville has also increased in recent years. The median home price a year ago, still in an inflationary period, was about $298,000. Today, the average sale in Louisville area is about $328,000. That's also about a 10% increase in 1 year. If you're an investor of any type, you know that an annual gain of 10% is pretty stellar. So let me frame some of that for you. The people in 2022 that didn't buy just because they were waiting for the market to tank, they just lost out on a 10% return in 1 year. Even if their interest rate was 7%, which some are right now, they were still in the black. Now explain. If you save a few $1,000s every month, your house payment, but that money costs money, the interest rate, the price increase of your home is larger than the amount that you paid for that credit. So if you pay 3% if you pay 7% to save $3,000, you're going to get back 10% when you sell because your value of your home has increased by that much. It's free money. Of course, you have to have the money to be able to save or make your home purchase, but it's a pretty stellar rate. I don't know of a better investment at the moment. If you do, 100% reach out and tell me where I can get better than an annual return of 10%. Seriously, let me know.
Neal, when it does crash, those gains will be wiped out.
I have two counters to that argument. One, a real estate full-on crash is unlikely. The absorption rate of homes, that's the pretend number that represents how long it would take for every home that's available now to be sold if there were no new listings. So nothing new comes to market, wait for everything to sell. How long did that take? A year ago, that rate was about 1.5 months. The most recent numbers, we have increased to about 1 2/3. In a healthy balanced market, I'd like to see an absorption rate of about 3 to 4 months, but we're at 1.67 right now. Now, the reasons for this low inventory, I'm sure you've heard that term, low inventory, just means there's not enough houses for sale. It's related to a couple of different factors. That's not the focus of this video, but a market is hard to crash when there is sufficient demand and not enough goods. 2007, when we had that crash, it saw opposite conditions as what we're seeing now. Homes sitting empty, people with no equity, people's equity position or how much of their loan they've paid off, or if they just bought it with cash, you've got 100% equity. People are in a much better equity position these days than they were, and homes are not being built and sitting empty. It's just not happening. The second reason that investment in real estate is, in my opinion, still a good deal, look at this chart. This is the last 100 years of the Dow Jones stocks. Look at that first peak there in 1966. After that high, the Dow Jones falls until 1982. But in January of 1992, you have a gain from that first peak in 66 of over 100%. This is a longer frame to look at, but from 1966 to 1992, your money doubles, even though it fell so much, bottoming out in 1982. It's the long game. The drop does not affect you unless you sell while it's down. Those are called unrealized losses. It's like unrealized gains. Oh, my stuff's worth more. Doesn't matter unless you sell the stuff. In 2007, that was the high of the real estate market back then. And yes, we had a crash overall of about 20% nationally. The crash in Louisville wasn't as dramatic as 20%, but we felt it. And 20% in real estate, I know that 20 is not a huge number, but think about it. That means if your house was valued at $400,000, your house is now worth $320,000. It's significant, but we didn't see 20% here. We did see it though. But unless you're moving soon, those routine ups and downs, even if it's a big cliff, it won't affect you. There's been no long-term period where the real estate market has not appreciated. And currently, because of that low inventory, it's appreciating at an astronomical rate. I'll get off my soapbox about that and get back to discussing cost of living specifically.
Oh, get off your soapbox, Brian.
Oh, but real quick, it would be super helpful if you click like on this video. And if you're not already subscribed, hit that subscribe button. To stay caught up, click the little bell icon there too. You'll be notified when a new video drops. We would always love to hear from you, especially if you are thinking of making a move to Louisville. So reach out. You can email, text, call, or of course, sound that bugle. So anyway, why has the cost of living changed? Of course, there are several factors. One factor that I really don't think people talk about enough is the creation of new money at the federal level, the Federal Reserve, the Fed. Something like 40 or 50% of every dollar that exists right now has been created out of thin air since the year 2000, 3 years. It's like cutting a pie up in a whole lot of different sections. You haven't gotten more pie. You've just cut it up into smaller sections. Now you need more sections to have the same amount of pie. Some of the other factors, influx of new residents. Louisville's been growing steadily in recent years. It has put a little bit of a strain on the housing market. You know, when you've got 1.67 months of inventory around, when new people come, that lowers that back down. That limited availability of housing really does affect the price. If we had a good 3 to 4 month supply of homes, the cost for those homes would, if not decrease, at the very least, they would increase much more slowly. The rising cost of living was also affected by the COVID pandemic. It led to an increase in remote work, which made it possible for people to be based in a city like LA or New York and live in Louisville. You don't have to commute. So that has put a demand on housing in Louisville as well. And the one thing that I don't hear hardly any discussion of at all is about how we are still recovering from so many builders going out of business in 2007 and 2008. We need more homes. In those decades, the like 2010, where the Great Recession was, there were about 1/5 of the homes built in the entire country than are normally built. We just don't have the houses to support our growing population and the changing location of everybody. We need homes. So what does this mean for you? It means that your budget, if you'll get a mortgage, will be lowered for buying a house. But you know, I love my house now. My wife and I have lived in 3 different houses that we owned. And I assure you, the one we started off in is not anywhere as great as where we live now. You upgrade over time. Louisville's still a relatively affordable city. The cost of living is lower than the national average, and there's still many affordable housing options available. Like I said, the average home price, $328,000 right now. Way lower than a good swath of the country. Let's talk about some of the other sectors of the economy. How are we doing for other things? Let's talk about groceries, for example. Groceries are below the national average. It's not a huge amount below. Don't get too excited. A gallon of milk in Louisville, it'll run you about $3.50. National average for a gallon of milk, $3.70. Of course, there are places where it's much higher because that's how averages work. But, $3.50, just a little bit below the average. Dining out is also a little bit below the national average. Of course, in my opinion, the quality is well over the national average. We've got so many great local restaurants around. Our utility costs are at or right around the average, and that's true for gas, electric, water, sewer, trash, all that stuff. A couple of them slightly higher, a couple of them slightly lower. It's about average. Do you like the internet? I do too. Look, we're both on the internet. Be prepared to pay average rates for home internet. One sector that we pay a little more for is gas. The current national average for a gallon of gas is about $3.54, just above a gallon of milk here. The average gallon around here right now, $3.69. One thing that I noticed, since I'm all around the area all the time, gas prices really can vary widely depending on where you are in the area. You get to the outskirts or some of the little towns that are right outside the city, sometimes it's a deep discount for gas. It's pretty cool. Plus those Kroger cards. I don't know if everywhere does that. Kroger grocery chain based out of Cincinnati. It's our main grocery chain here. Publix is supposed to be coming too. But you get a card, and of course all the sales they have, they don't kick in unless you scan the card so that they can keep track and market to you. But you get up to $1 off at the pump every time you fill up. It's pretty nice. Let's talk about everybody's favorite sector.
Taxes.
Kentucky's income tax used to be a flat 5%. It was lowered by 0.5% recently, and the governor signed a bill for another 0.5% earlier this year. It takes effect January of 2024. The legislature right now is committed to phasing it out altogether. It remains to be seen if it'll happen, but fingers crossed. There's no local income tax like to the city of Louisville or anything, unless of course you're self-employed and you'll pay a local tax, I guess, for the benefit of being allowed to run a business. I don't know. Our sales tax is 6%. The national average of sales tax is 7.25%. So we're lower there too. One good thing about our sales tax is that food is exempted for it. So when you go to Kroger for your gallon of milk, you will part with that $3.50 and nothing more. Property taxes are a little below the national average, which is 0.72%. If you're on average, if your house is $100,000, each year you would pay $720 in taxes, average nationally. I would give you a number, but the city is comprised of a lot of those different little home rule class cities and different entities, and you might pay taxes to different government entities depending on what part of the city you live in. So property taxes are not 100% standard, but they are below average. After all the taxes talk, I think my next video should be called Taxation is Theft. Comment below if you agree or disagree with that assessment. So, the cost of living in Louisville has changed in recent years. Rent and home prices have increased, but the overall cost of living is still lower than the national average. So if you're thinking about moving to Louisville, you should be aware of those changes and factor them into your budget. If you're moving from the coast or a real popular city, your budget gets a little more friendly. I hope this has been helpful. If you have any questions or comments, leave them below. I'd love to answer them. If you want to learn more about Louisville, don't forget to subscribe to this channel. I'll be posting more soon.